Hello, good evening, good morning, wherever you are across this great nation or around the globe. I am your host, Kelly Robertson, also known as Earth Song Lovecraft, and this is Deja Brew, where we are waking you up to truth. Now, this segment is going to be a little bit enlightening for you because a lot of people don't realize just how active our former president Donald Trump still is in conversations and activities and decisions of things that are going on within our country and for our country. So, this is a phone call that Donald Trump was a part of on Border Patrol that I want you to listen to, and I want you to listen closely because this also ties into Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and why the Democrats and some Republicans wanted to leave our borders open. And we're going to get to that as well. Because again, this is a learning curve for all of you. Allow me to share my screen. And take a listen.
You may withdraw yourself from the queue by pressing star 2. Please note that this call is being recorded, and I will be standing by should you need any assistance. It is now my pleasure to turn the conference over to Stephen Chung, Communications Director for the Trump campaign. Please.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Chung. I'm the Communications Director for the campaign. I'd like to thank you all for joining us on today's call to discuss the failed record of border czar Kamala Harris. We look forward to taking a few questions as time allows following initial remarks. As a reminder, this call is being recorded and everything is on the record. To discuss this, we're excited to be joined by President Donald J. Trump, as well as Border Patrol Union President Paul Perez and immediate past President Brandon Judd. First, we'll hear from Brandon Judd.
Thank you, Stephen. President Trump, it's always good to be with you. We've done many events and never done one like this. Good outside the box thinking. Always good to be with you. I really appreciate the members. Thank you, President. I really appreciate the members of the media being here. I don't want to speak for President Trump. I don't want to speak for Paul, but I firmly believe that we all want to have an honest conversation about an issue that is important to not only Border Patrol agents, but to millions upon millions of U.S. citizens. And due to such, I will speak my mind. And frankly, Vice President Kamala Harris's actions show a complete disregard for border security formed by either political ambition or incompetence. So that I don't get accused of rhetoric, I will back my statement up with facts. As most of you know, my job as the MBPC president was to represent the interests of my agents, both politically and officially. While each of you know the MBPC and I have been staunch supporters of President Trump, most don't know why, and context always matters. In 2015, and due to President Obama's second-term failures, we were placed in a situation that we had to wade into presidential politics. We vetted all candidates, including Democrats, and after several interviews, it was clear that that then candidate Trump was the right person for border security. He was open to ideas and never acted like he knew everything. In him, we saw someone that would cut through Washington bureaucracy to implement actual border security policies. And each of you know he drove illegal border crossings to historic lows, not just once, but twice. Fast forward to 2021, and we saw the exact opposite. And because I'm willing to work with any administration on the official side, regardless of preference, I did my best to work with the Biden-Harris administration. In multiple television interviews, I even said I hope Biden succeeds, because if he succeeds, America would succeed. I met with Secretary Mayorkas on several occasions in person and on the phone. And working within the Biden-Harris parameters, I presented several policy proposals that ultimately Vice President Harris shot down. Instead of addressing cartels and the human devastation they cause to migrants and U.S. citizens alike, she tried to explain away the crisis as a climate and political instability issue in the over 160 countries we were seeing people coming from. All we have to do is look at what the New York Times said. In 2022, they cited a figure of $13 billion in cartel revenue, up from $500 million in 2018. For years, independent coyotes.
Now, I'm just going to interrupt there. I'm sure you've seen the videos of the caravans and the buses bringing people in, well fed, well clothed, well shoed, clean, not dirty, as refugees should look. It was all for photo ops and props. And I really, truly hope that these people were paid well for their time and their effort of pretending to be refugees coming across our borders. And I also pray for their families and their children in particular that they were kept together and are still safe and together. Because the real reason that so many in our country do not want borders has nothing to do with liberty and freedom, as I will show you in a few more moments. But I want you to listen to a little bit more of this first. We're not going to listen to the whole clip.
These paid cartels attacked to move migrants through territory they controlled along the border, and the criminal syndicates stuck to their traditional line of business, drug smuggling, which was far more profitable. It was under Vice President Harris's oversight as border czar that cartel profits skyrocketed. In essence, she excused the cartels, thereby emboldening them to levels we'd never seen before. Her actions have caused a great many deaths and depravity in the U.S. You all know the stories of the rapes and murders of U.S. citizens and the drug poisoning, and that alone should disqualify Vice President Harris in the minds of voters. But what often goes unnoticed is the migrant suffering we see on a daily basis. We see little girls crying nonstop who exhibit the signs of rape and abuse. We see migrants robbed of all their possessions, and
let's listen to that again.
Great many deaths and depravity in the U.S. You all know the stories of the rapes and murders of U.S. citizens and the drug poisoning, and that alone should disqualify Vice President Harris in the minds of voters. But what often goes unnoticed is the migrant suffering we see on a daily basis. We see little girls crying nonstop who exhibit the signs of rape and abuse. We see migrants robbed of all their possessions, and I dare say VP Harris has never responded to the scene of an accident caused by a smuggler that leaves people trapped in vehicles to burn to death, or vehicle accidents that leave persons strewn over the road. I have. And what is now a regular occurrence was a very rare occurrence under President Trump. VP Harris knows the solutions, but she refuses to implement them, leaving me to conclude she is either politically power hungry for the base support or she is dangerously incompetent. I've concluded it's both. The contrast is clear. President Trump has been there and done that, and is obviously the right choice for the millions upon millions of U.S. citizens who want a secure border. These are facts, not rhetoric, and I look forward to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Brandon. Next, I will turn it over to Paul Perez.
Thank you. It's always good to be with President Trump, the best president that we've had in my lifetime. I have served under 5 presidents in my 27-year career, and I can tell you by far President Trump has done the most for this country and definitely for border security. Under President Trump, we had a total of 1.7 million encounters. Under Biden, in his term, we have had almost 10 million encounters, 1.8 million gotaways. That is people that crossed the border that we were not able to apprehend and determine who they were. They are in this country illegally, and because of the amount of people that this administration has allowed into the country, there is very little possibility that we will be able to apprehend them all, although I believe that when Trump becomes president again, he will actually enforce the laws and allow our agents, allow our officers to go in and execute warrants that would actually remove all of these illegal aliens, the criminals especially. And there are tons of criminals that were released into this country. It's a shell game right now. These executive orders that President Biden issued are exactly that, a shell game. They have allowed tens of thousands of people to continue to be released. Catch and release is still going on, even though they've come out and said that they have put a stop. What they did was transfer the amount of people that were releasing from Border Patrol over to the Office of Field Operations. So we are still flying people in from their countries. They're being processed here in the United States and then released into the interior of the country to go on and commit crimes. You guys have all heard about the crime wave that is going on throughout the country, much of it being committed by illegal aliens who are released by this administration. They have come in, been allowed to stay in hotels while our veterans are in the streets. They've been given money. They've been given funds. They've been allowed to work. They have completely ignored Border Patrol agents. They've done things that would make you really upset when you talk to Border Patrol agents on the ground. This incompetence is dangerous. We cannot allow Kamala Harris to be the President of the United States. Otherwise, the border will get even more ridiculous than it is.
Thank you, Paul. And next, I'm excited to introduce President Donald J. Trump. Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Brandon and Paul. It was very revealing what you said, and I appreciate it, and I think the whole country appreciates it. Kamala Harris was appointed border czar, as you know, in March of 2021, and since that time, millions and millions of illegal aliens have invaded our country, and countless Americans have been killed by migrant crime because of her willful demolition of American borders and laws. Working together with crooked Joe Biden, Kamala Harris supported a radical left policy of nationwide catch and release, halting all deportations, ending Remain in Mexico, so important, shredding my Safe Third agreement, stopping the wall construction. We built hundreds of miles of wall. We had a little bit left to go, and we were going to add another 200 miles in addition, and it was going to be finished in less than 3 weeks, and they didn't want to build it. That's when I first figured that they actually want open borders. Nobody could believe it. And also taking 93 executive actions to throw open our borders to the entire world. And they took these executive actions. Nobody could believe it. As a result of her dangerously extreme immigration policies, the largest invasion in history is now taking place at our southern border, and it's getting worse, not better. They gave a Band-Aid a few weeks ago, but the Band-Aid has not been working at all. It's made it worse. Last month, it was reported that more than 50 radical Islamic terrorists are loose in the United States after being let go through the open border, right through our open border, and Kamala and Joe Biden have no idea where they are, who they are, or anything about them. I don't think they even care. In her entire time as vice president and border czar, Kamala has reportedly never spoken to the chief of the Border Patrol. You can ask the two gentlemen right now. Probably she's never spoken to him. She visited the border only a single time, far away from the epicenter of the invasion. You don't even call it a visit. She went to a place that has no problem and was there for a very short period of time. So essentially, she never visited the border as we know it. As a senator, Kamala Harris endorsed the radical left crusade to dismantle ICE and ISIS. These are incredible patriots. These are brave, brave people. Very few people could do a job like that, and she wanted it dismantled. She compared our patriotic ICE agents to members of the KKK. She suggested they were members of the KKK. She supports the total decriminalization of illegal border crossings and making illegal immigration the equivalent of a parking ticket. She raised her hand in favor of giving free taxpayer-funded health care to illegal aliens, but not to our soldiers and our people that have served our country so brilliantly, so valiantly, who are living on the streets. She supports mass amnesty and citizenship for all illegal aliens. She wants everybody to get amnesty, 100%, even if they're criminals, which will obliterate Medicare and Social Security for American seniors. That will be the end of Social Security and Medicare. Kamala Harris also voted in favor of deadly sanctuary cities, which shield illegal alien criminals, murderers, and gang members from deportation and arrest. And as weak on crime prosecutor in sanctuary jurisdiction of San Francisco, Kamala refused to seek the death penalty against anybody, no matter how devastating, whether it's MS-13 gang members, no matter how bad the killing was, the murder was, no matter what they did, she refused to have the death penalty. And by the way, I was with a gentleman last night who's leaving San Francisco, a rich man, a successful man, a man that everybody knows very well. He's moving to Palm Beach, Florida. And I said, why? He said, you cannot live in San Francisco. It's not livable, he said. I've never forgotten. I mean, he's not livable. It's a statement I won't forget. 15 years ago, it was one of the greatest cities in the world. And today they say it's not livable and people are fleeing. And it's all, I said, why? He said, she started it when she was the DA. She started it. She's destroyed San Francisco, which is a hell of a thing to do. If she becomes president, Kamala Harris will make the invasion exponentially worse. And just like she did with San Francisco, just like she did with the border, our whole country will be permanently destroyed. So I will terminate every open borders policy of the Biden-Harris administration. On day one, I will seal the border, stop the invasion, and keep America safe. We will make America great again. Thank you all very much. And Stephen, if they want to take some questions, that's fine with me.
Okay, we're going to stop right there. Because we all know that there are a ton of reasons for Kamala Harris not to be the next president of the United States. But I want to show you some interesting things that I have found in just doing a quick search for human trafficking. And look what I came up with. This is just right off the top of the list. Okay. 2 hours ago, 15 hours ago. That one's 3 years ago. 1 day ago. Now we're going to look at this one. Let's take a look at this, shall we? Because this says that Facebook has announced that it's now legal to do this on Marketplace. What? You can now buy, sell, and trade people on Marketplace. I can't sell my dog on Marketplace without being flagged and said, told that it's inappropriate. You have to do that in the specific groups for, finding dogs new homes. And you have to call it rehoming. You can't even call it selling. This is insane, you guys. And the hell of it is that when you go back to this search, this is rampant in our country and worldwide, right? Look, 3 arrested after police investigate at a home in Miami Gardens. Then we've got that one uncovers between Australia and Indonesia. Then we've got, tutorials on how these little parties actually work, in case you need to know. This is a great documentary to watch from Frontline. I highly recommend everyone watch this. Let's see what this one is.
I'm Detective Joseph Scaramucci with the McLennan County Sheriff's Office. I've worked hundreds of trafficking cases over the past 6 years, and I want to share with you what I've learned about traffickers and buyers. First, we have to understand that human trafficking, like all industries generating profit, is about supply and demand. We know that the supply side of human trafficking is the victims, the people who are used and exploited. The demand side is the buyers, the people who are seeking to pay for the services provided by victims. And the person in the middle is the trafficker. The trafficker is a person who, through force, fraud, or coercion, is providing the victim to the buyer. So who are these sex traffickers? In sex trafficking, a trafficker may be better known as a pimp. Now take a minute and think about what comes to mind when you think of the word pimp. Based on music and movies, you probably have a pretty distinct image of what comes to mind. But as someone who has encountered and arrested a lot of pimps over the years, I have to tell you, most don't look like this. I'm about to show you a group of photos. Take 10 seconds and decide who you think the pimp is.
I'm going to say the girl in the top left corner. And I haven't seen this video.
You may have guessed it, but all of these people have been arrested for sex trafficking.
Oh, all of them.
In 2018, a Travis County, Texas woman conspired with her boyfriend to traffic a 14-year-old girl, lured the girl through Tagged, a social media app, used threats of force to make her perform sex acts, is now serving 40 years in prison. In 2018, a Houston, Texas man was running a massage business out of his home using a 15-year-old boy to give massages to clients. Paying customers were allowed to engage in sexual activities with that boy. He did this to multiple boys. He also tried to traffic this boy to the Summer Olympics in London in 2012. He's now serving a 30-year prison sentence. In 2016, a Waco man who was 51 years old harbored a 15-year-old runaway girl and charged men to have sex with her while keeping her high on heroin. He's now serving 12 consecutive life sentences. In 2018, a junior high teacher in a small town, Mahia, Texas, was accused of posting nude photos of her underage family member and arranging for multiple men in Morocco to have sex with her. In 2019, a former District of Columbia police officer who met two ninth grade girls online, 14 and 15 years old, paid them to have sex with him. He pointed a gun at one of the girls, demanding his money back after she performed a sexual act. He's now serving 10 to 20 years in prison. From 2012 to 2015, a woman sold her 10-year-old daughter to a businessman multiple times over several years. He promised to pay the victim's tuition and provided the mother with expensive electronics and other gifts. The 67-year-old businessman was convicted of sex trafficking of a minor. As disturbing as it is to hear stories like this, these types of cases are really happening in the communities around America. These stories remind us that traffickers come in many forms. They could be from the United States or they could be from another country. They could be family members or partners of the victims or total strangers. Traffickers can be male or female. They could be individuals, part of an organized group, or gangs. Another group guilty of human trafficking is recruiters. A recruiter is used by a trafficker to find potential victims. These recruiters often seek out vulnerabilities that make a person easier to manipulate. Things like low self-esteem, history of abuse, running away from home, or unsupervised internet access increase a young person's vulnerability. Recruiters look for their victims in places where youth are often unsupervised. They might hang out at malls and parks, befriend youth in schools or local libraries, meet runaway youth at a bus stop, youth shelters, or online. Even though a recruiter isn't the person directly selling or trafficking the victim, according to the law, they are still guilty of human trafficking. So we know traffickers and recruiters do what they do so they can make a profit. But who's driving the demand? The buyers. Like traffickers, buyers also come in many forms. Over the years, I've arrested more than 450 buyers in human trafficking stings. I've picked up buyers as young as 17 years old and as old as 75. They come from every segment of society. They are married and single, businessmen, doctors, construction workers, and the unemployed, just passing through, or prominent community members. Most buyers are there because they, 1, think it's a victimless crime, 2, think they won't get caught, and 3, have a sex addiction or feel unable to get their sexual needs met in any appropriate way. But the truth is this: there are very real victims whose lives are being destroyed through their actions. There are law enforcement like me looking to hold them accountable. Exploiting another person is never an acceptable way to have your needs met. A lot of these buyers also admit that the chain of events that led them to seeking to buy sex, and especially for those seeking sex with a minor, all started with an addiction to pornography. My job as a detective is to investigate these crimes and hold the perpetrators accountable. But I also care about the victims impacted by these crimes. That's why I depend on Unbound advocates to be there to help the survivors get the care and support that they need. And whenever I train on human trafficking investigations around the country, I tell other law enforcement it's vital that they identify an agency in their community that can provide services to these survivors. So we talked about traffickers, recruiters, and buyers, but where does that leave you?
And I just want to add to the buyers category that you need to think about your politicians, your judges, your lawyers, not just the doctors, prominent people in your communities in your country. Prominent people. Think JonBenet Ramsey, a definite, prominent political figure, has direct ties to her.
As a member of your community, first of all, commit to not being part of the problem. Don't buy sex. Don't let yourself get on the slippery slope of pornography addiction, which leads so many people to buying sex. Don't exploit and don't take advantage of other people. Keep your eyes and ears open. If you see something suspicious, call the National Human Trafficking Hotline or your local law enforcement. If your community isn't educated about human trafficking, help organize an awareness event or advocate for education in your schools. If you have young people in your life, talk to them about trafficking, online safety, and pornography. Be a safe place for them when they screw up. And get involved with and donate to organizations like Unbound so they can continue to be there for the survivors that law enforcement recovers. Whatever you do, take action and be a part of the solution.
Unbound. It's global. It's called unboundnow.org. The National Human Trafficking Hotline is 1-888-373-7888. These are very serious crimes and very real reasons for them to not want borders. Let's think and use logic. Let's fight for our country. Let's fight for other countries' children and women. Let's protect our own. Let's pray that God protects us all and gives us the strength and the ability and the resources that are needed to end this for good. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon. There's much more to learn. Until then, I'm Kelly Robertson with Deja Brew, waking you up to truth.